Yes, for almost 60 years, let's say, more than 60 years. He has covered so much in his life that I'm not even going to try and summarise it. He will.
We could do it if we had sleeping bags and Hugh Harrison wine.
However, suffice it to say, Mike is coming up to his 80th birthday, and we'd all like to wish Mike a happy birthday. He doesn't look 80, he doesn't act 80, but
all the women have to do is say please. I mean please, I might consider coming out of time. No.
So, other than that, Mike is going to have an exhibition running, I think, is it from November through to February? Yes, in Farmley House. And tonight he's going to give us a talk, but it's not just a talk. It's almost like a partial dry run for the exhibition. We will get to see some of the stuff that he's going to put on exhibit actually up close and personal here, which I think is a great privilege for us all. I won't delay it further because Mike is keen to go. We need to be just fairly quiet in the hall. That's the only thing I would ask.
Congratulations, I believe you won a big award. Is that right? Or came second? Is that
Second.
I'm up against it.
Get in there.
It's a strange one because, you know, I've been very privileged to have seen most of the world lots of times, doing lots of different things, but I originally came from England. I was born in Yorkshire, and after the war we were schooled in Blackheath in southeast London. I come from a family of 10 generations of seafaring, merchant navy, and on my mother's side, my father was English, bit of Irish blood, and my mother's half Spanish and half English, and on her father's side, he was the royal ancestor, he was the royal engraver to King George III. So I knew at some stage there was going to be travel and art in the family, in the genes, you know. And at a very early age, I noticed my older sister, God rest her soul, she was painting and doing ballet dancing and all that stuff. And I was a great observer. I just loved this ephemeral kind of side of life. And I remember after the war, we were footloose and fancy free. We were on a new adventure. And it was during those early years that my brother, who lives in America, in Florida, very good photographer as well, we used to look at my mother's scrapbooks from when she was in East Africa. Beautiful photographs in this album. I still have it at home somewhere. It's very hallowed, but it was exquisitely described in fine white mapping pen ink. And each picture was about 6 by 9. So I figured she must have had a folding camera that took 120 film. But they would have been contacts. I don't know in those days because I knew nothing about photography. But it fascinated me and my brother. And when we were about 12, 13, he would have been younger than me. He would have been 13, I would have been 15 or something. But we tried putting a darkroom under the stair cupboard at home. And we suddenly realised we couldn't get enlarged ones because we had a small enlarger, but you only had to go up 2 foot. So we were actually getting smaller prints that my mother had in her scrapbook. But that was the first adventure. But when I went to school, I went to a very interesting school, a cathedral choir school in London, but I was always interested in art. I couldn't wait for double art. I couldn't wait for the school scenery to be painted because that's what I wanted to do. And then I started as a teenager, where I came to that wonderful art school revolution of the 60s, early 60s. There was about 200 or 300 of us there. We made it happen. But I wanted to travel as well. So I ended up in Spain, and I actually ended up in Hong Kong on other trips. And I bought a Minolta SR3 35mm film camera. And I was so proud of it. I loved it. Loved it. It was like having a sort of Japanese China doll as a girlfriend. But what happened, I got more and more interested in photography and travelling. I ended up living in southern Spain for a couple of years. And I would have been 19 at the time, 20. And incidentally, I met John Lennon and Brian Epstein there, became quite friendly with them, before there was a group even called the Beatles. But they hadn't got any demos or anything else. But I befriended a chap with called Morgan. Mike Stone was his name. He was nicknamed Morgan because he had a Morgan racing car. But he was interested in photography. And he was fascinated. I had a proper 35mm rangefinder SLR, state of the art, you know. And it's a good camera. And he said, you must meet my friend. He's coming back from the Moroccan desert. And he had, I couldn't believe it, he had the most Jewish sounding name. And he was coming from the opposite side of the fence, you know, Matt Finkelstein was his name. And anyway, I met him, and he presented to me and Mike Stone these incredible pictures. They're probably full of dots and dashes and hairs, whatever. Black and white, 12 by 10 prints of Bedouin tribespeople, black and white. And he had these two Canon black rangefinder, number 5, black. And I said, that's what I want. I want to do that. And I couldn't wait to get back to London. So I went back to London, and the 60s was really to meet my art school friends. And the 60s was starting all over again. But I couldn't get a job. There was no such thing. Photography was a job then. There was no art school in the world that had a syllabus for photography. And if you had a job in photography, unless you worked in a local village or town portrait studio, you'd get a job maybe as to be taught how to do laboratory work, a technician. And the only thing when I first came here was the same thing. There was no such thing as a photographic college. And I think, I might be wrong, I think Kevin Street was the first to start, but it was really to do lab courses and things. And one of my great friends here, Anthony Hobbs, from NCAD, he's collaborating with, we've known each other forever. He was the first one to actually introduce a proper artistic approach to photography and put it into National College of Art and Design. And that was only happening in England at the same time. So when I went back to England to try and get a job to a college, there was no such thing. You could get a job as a lab technician or an assistant, because remember the 60s hadn't really South Sea bubbled. And I could have got £7 a week as an assistant. But how was I going to live in Chelsea, right, on £7 a week in a flat, right, on £7 a week? I was earning £100 a week in Spain. Then, that was a good job. But anyway, I still, I kept going on and on. I bought myself another camera, but I really wanted a Nikon F. I was fascinated with the work of Don McCollum, incredible photographer. He managed with all that Vietnam, I don't know, are you familiar with his work? He did all the Vietnam War stuff for the Telegraph, or the Times actually. But it was beautifully composed. One of the things I never wanted to do in photography is war or politics, or underwater photography. But his pictures were so beautifully composed. Rumour had it at the time that they were so well composed that he'd find dead bodies and things, in the field, and rearrange little things like their little things around their neck with identities and that, And it just made the whole thing have dignity, and they're just beautiful. And he managed to get all his war heroes to stare into the camera with a bit more black on them and all. But they were very poignant and they're very good. And I think it was the fact that there was one picture in one of the spreads where it showed his Nikon F with a photomic head, black, with a big dent in it, and that saved his life because the bullets had saved him. And I didn't want to do his type of pictures, right? And I had another friend, someone I befriended since then, Adam Wolfett, that was doing work for the Telegraph, all over the world, beautiful photographic essays. And that's what gave me this desire to travel with a camera, and but I had to have a Nikon F.
Mike.
What?
And actually, just by the way, Mike did say he would welcome interruptions during this talk.
Oh yeah.
So do feel free. Mike, I've got a question.
Yeah.
So, we kind of come along through these stages, and then you seem to be stopped by the
Pick up.
So you're going along through different stages, and then you see a camera, and that camera seems to be what you want. That surprises me.
Well, it was just like identifying with something that I was beginning to love, right? I was flirting with photography. Remember, I went to Camberwell Art School to do figure drawing, and it's through my travels I realised that it was too slow to do a sketch of someone or a landscape or paint it. Whereas with a camera, I still had enough enthusiasm to photograph who was in front of me, or the landscape, and get more, but also retain the dignity of everything. And that's when I started realising photography was very, very special. But it was getting back to the Nikon. I eventually got one, and you won't believe this, I used to put that Nikon F camera with a photomic head black on the mantelpiece, so when I woke up in the morning, I could wave to my girlfriend. And it was lovely. And I came to Ireland on a fishing holiday. So I could go on forever about biographies, and I don't want. I came here on a fishing trip, and straight away I couldn't believe what a wonderful place this was. I could be a little boy here for the rest of my life. I was taught within 3 days how to lie, right? How to exaggerate, how to love, and how to laugh. And it hasn't left me. I said to my friends in Chelsea when I went back, all in advertising, I said, I just found this incredible place where I can be a little boy for the rest of my life. Look at me, 18 years old, I still touch my toes. No, you have to. No, but the thing is, I've been to 50 odd parts of the world, 150 destinations, maybe more, as a photographer and a traveller. And I can tell anyone in this room, or anyone in the world, if you're used to a Western type lifestyle, this is without a doubt the best place in the world to have a free life. Without a doubt. You know, we all hate each other, but we love each other. Yeah. I'm talking about tribal warfare. We were talking about earlier, Kildare or Sligo or Leeds. Yeah. It was good to see the lily white sunny coming up in it, isn't it? Bribery. But you know, years ago I realised everything was in black and white when I came here. Do you remember the railway car and all that stuff? Yeah. And in black and white, we were talking about it earlier, on television, you could only determine 2 teams, Kilkenny and Kildare. One was white and the other was black and white. On television, all the other teams, like, you know, through photography, if it's pale yellow or blue or pale green, it's the same grey tone. Yeah. So it was good, isn't it? So if you didn't support Kildare or Kilkenny, now we go down because they couldn't tell who we were playing for.
Question for you, Mike. At that stage, so you're 60s London, are you earning your living through photography at this point? So you're taking images, but are you taking images with an artist's eye, or are you just recording the scene?
No, it was the art school training determined that, and my history, like my ancestor was a very famous engraver, you know, so etching was the whole thing. And I just loved the alchemy of photography. I just loved it. So, sorry about that, digital cameras got in the way recently, but that's okay. But what excited me more than anything was that this camera I had now, a second lens, by the way, I got another Nikon F2. And not an F2, I mean another, and I got another one too, so I had 2 of them. And I'd be spotted going around the streets of Dublin in the early 70s doing work, and people stopped me, asked me about the cameras. And you see, it's a funny thing. I was talking earlier, yesterday, to someone about this, because when I came here first, I met this Dutch graphic designer who was in charge of Aer Lingus, and they were very big at the time, you know, huge. Imagine that, they made a lot of money, a small private company. And he asked me to do a report and accounts cover for their, you know, and they had just got 3 737s into the fleet. So that was BAC 111s, you know, they didn't crash, they'd come in on a wing and a prayer, you know. But what was lovely about it, I just got this triple turret filter you put on front of the camera, very arty, you know. And he said, Mike, can you put that on the front of the camera? So I got this 1737 we had, taking off a landing, you know, for this particular shoot. And it's the one with the triple turret they used on the cover. I haven't got that shot now, but it was, imagine the first job I do is 1969, the Report My Cards cover for Aer Lingus, right? And it's with like 3 planes, it's a Mirage, you know. But it was artistic license in those days, wasn't it? But it was good fun. But then we started doing travel. Aer Lingus had a subsidiary called Blue Skies. They were a travel company. Now, package tours were unheard of throughout the whole of Europe at that stage. And Blue Skies was one of the pioneers. And I'll never forget, so I went on a trip with Eric in 1971. It got European Travel Brochure of the Year. And half the hotels in it weren't photographs, they were artists' impression, there was nothing to photograph. You know what I mean? So we had to make, and Eric, I never forget, he said, Mike, this is great. We're in, I think we're in Mallorca or something like that, or Corfu in Greece, and he said, this is great, we'll get the feel of the place first. So we did nothing for 10 days, we just drank it out all the time. But we came back with some really good pictures. And then to get this award, I couldn't believe it. You know? But then eventually I started doing, another one of those trips, I bought a Hasselblad, because in England, suddenly you had this revolution of fashion, pops, everyone wanted to be a pop singer, you know, everyone wanted to be a fashion model. So all these new magazines kept opening, and everyone had Hasselblad, or better than Rolly, because it had a square format. See, and most photographers got one because they thought they were going to get LP colours. You know? Do you remember the square? So eventually I got a Hasselblad. It was a CN. It was lovely. It was black with a matte silver lens. So I'm walking around in this white calico rough old suit in Corfu. I've got a black Nikon F around one shoulder, and this Hasselblad around the other, and everyone kept looking at me. I was telling Anne last night, I felt like a Adonis, some new male model, with my Cartier jewellery hanging off me, you know. It was just unheard of, because photography then was just in a studio where you'll be doing commercial work, or you'll be a lab technician developing the stuff. It's only suddenly the way it all erupted. You got David Bailey and all those people, you know, doing fashion models and all that stuff. And so it became very, very, you know, it became a cultural kind of way of explaining things, you know. And I joined in simply because I was part of it, you know, but I didn't try and be cocky or so, you know, didn't show off doing all that stuff. I was living in Ireland, put manners on me. I wanted to go fishing, tell lies, have a drink or two when no one's looking. Isn't that it? But seriously, I've had a really good, it was when I'd done so much travel photography. The great thing about travel is you're a one-man film unit. You become director, you become property master, you become locations manager, you have to get your own, look after your producing airfares and things like that. And you're subject matter. So I was very good at choreographing everything. So I always worked as what we call a loose brief. And that's the way I worked. But it's just then, I was doing a lot of work, travel, lovely stuff for Aer Lingus, car magazines, and really lovely stories. But I suddenly got a bit fed up with it because I was being invited to go and do a story, but I was going to get fed up with it. I remember doing 14 Greek islands once in 12 days. I loved every minute of it. I was fit as a fiddle. Mahogany with the colours, they say. But it was an addiction. Wherever I went, I had to take pictures. And it was lovely. But then Betty, my late wife, she said to me one day, Mike, I've seen an ad in the Irish Times here. There's a space on top of an area in a place called Crown Alley, just off Dame Street, and we go and have a look at it. We said it's about time you started having a darkroom again and took the portrait. So I looked at this place and I took it. And then across the road, Betty took this space where she had vintage clothing. And it was not, it was the real thing. It was Hollywood movie stuff. It was just superb. And it's just through that, Crown Alley was the passage from Henry Street over Hackney Bridge, under Merchant's Arch, across into Dame Street and into Grafton Street. And it was lovely because, well, it was all derelict, it was, you know, and all that stuff. But Betty said to me one day, I've got all these young, interesting fashion designers coming into my shop, and they're really interesting. And she said, why don't you approach Mary Dewey, she was the editor for Colour magazine, to say that you'd like to do a photographic essay on all these new up-and-coming fashion designers, you know. And they went for it. So suddenly, John Rosher appeared, Michael Mortel, Philip Tracy, all these people, and my phone didn't stop ringing for me to take fashion pictures, you know. I didn't mind it, but Sharon Baker, I don't forget it, Sharon, a really lovely model, Sharon Baker, Murray O'Leary, and Evelyn Barry, who's in America now, probably all grannies now anyway, but the thing is, they used to come up the stairs with kit bags full of shoes, wigs, jewellery. And Betty said one day, this is nonsense, put them all back in the car. And she actually started styling them with nothing. And then we started working with hair and makeup from David Marshall and that. And a whole new industry started. I kind of loved it in a way, and it was good fun. But I got fed up with that too. But seriously though, I really, actually in all fairness to Betty, we were creating Temple Bar, and her first shop burnt down through Paddy Owen's furniture van. Someone vandalised it, and that caught fire to the shop. So Betty moved around the corner, and she called the shop the Liberty Bell, from a little statue she bought in Romford. And I still have that little statue. It's precious because it's what happened. She called me over one day and said, Mike, look at this, it's interesting. I pulled the pegboarding down. You remember the hardboard with little holes in it, we've got hucksters like everything. And she said, there was these beautiful pine panels about 3 foot by 2 foot. And I started throwing it away. So with some of her insurance money, she cleaned the whole shop and the one next door. It was one door with 2 shops. And a man from upstairs, I think, that was called the Green Alliance, came down and introduced himself. They're not the Green Party. And he said, what are you doing? And she said, well, I found this, I'm just restoring it back to its magnificence. And he went to, who are the people in Taylor's Hall? Is that Tashkent? No.
Yeah,
Is it? Yeah. And brought a guy along, and suddenly it turned out to be the best example of a single-doored, upstairs, double-fronted shop in Ireland. Not Dublin, Ireland. And a preservation was brought on it, and Charlie Hawley did that, and so Temple Bar was born. I often used to go there, just for memory's sake, and she said, did we start this? And I said, I'm afraid we did. It was awful. And, but that was it. But I carried on, you know, working. I've been very lucky, I've had some very good, I tend to work by myself anyway. And I had some really good clients, did a lot of work for Tony Ryan, a lot of the advertising stuff, a lot of the fashion brands. And really, it's just brought me up to date, you know. I can't believe it's 6 decades ago. But for me, what was very important, I'm very serious, fanatic about photography. I know its history, I know the craftsmanship, I know all the people that count, but I was using film, and half the stuff I shot on all my travel journeys was shot on Kodachrome, or colour transparency. We used to roll up the give them to all the boxes, give them to the client. You never got anything back because it was a job. But suddenly in the mid-80s, late 80s, everyone started using colour negative. You always got your black and white notes back because you had to give them contacts and prints. So we all started using colour negative. So that was good because you got something back. But then when the digital age was around the corner, I'll never forget going to we Supply Systems one day. I came up with 25 rolls of 120 EPN colour transparency for a job. And Michael Marr said, he was like Max van Sydow in Hawaii. He stopped that train and all that stuff, you know, Albert Finney and that. He said, no, film is dead, digital's done. And he was right. 5 years later, he was right. All the labs closed down. I was still using film. But through Anthony Hobbs, NCAD, he was the first person in Ireland to really understand scanning a negative and then using digital technology to reproduce it. Now, still to this day, a good scanned film negative, black and white or colour, done properly, is better than a digital image from a digital camera. And the trouble is that the worst thing that's happened in the digital age, I've gone very fast forward here, so
That's all right.
$3 away. The trouble with the digital age, everyone became manic. They had to be 6 million to 10 million, 20 million pixels. Rubbish. The best, the first digital camera came out proper was the Olympus E1. 4/3, very small camera, 100% digital, where the lens was digital, the body was digital, and it was 4/3 format, which suited me because it's like medium format. And it was only 5 million pixels. And my friend just got a Canon with 6 million pixels. I think the best sensor ever made, for me, was the sensor for the Olympus E1. It's like Kodachrome. And Anthony Hopkins kept going on and on about millions of pixels. All you're doing is interpolating everything with modern technology. And that's why everything looks too sharp. A bit vulgar. And that's all right if you want to do architecture or something like that. But one of my heroes in photography was Peter Emerson. Are any of you familiar with his work? He photographed the people living in the Norfolk Broads in Suffolk, in turn of the last century. But he used plate cameras, all that stuff. But he said about focus, and most of his shots are slightly soft. He said everyone that can see properly never sees everything in focus, even if it's in focus. There's always a point of focus. The eye takes over. Everything else in focus, but it's just that one, and it's not bokeh, that word that everyone uses now. It's in and out of focus, it's that subtle thing. And that's what I really kept true to my camera. I never use sharpening, I always lower the contrast and desaturate everything, because it's like having a palette that you can adjust. You can't do that with licorice oil sauce. You know what I mean? When it's all too bright, too contrasty, and then you've got over sharpening it, and that makes it look worse, you know? So that's, I had a chat in the, after the, do you remember in the Oxygen Gallery? And I said, I have a new fiddle, and that's allowing me to play the old trick. In other words, my little Olympus camera was a new fiddle that was allowing me to do things I couldn't do with a film camera. I was paying compliment to the new technology, but it wasn't going to take me over. I'm a bit of a hypocrite because all I use now is Olympus cameras. That's not true, is it? But anyway, I've had everything. I've used every kind of camera you can think of, but I've always said that a camera to me is merely a vehicle. I don't care what the camera is, that allows my eyes from my brain to see, feel and touch what's in front of me. It's not a question of clicking, you know. And I think when I was about 20, I know Anne down there has heard me say this a few times, and Trish, I see Trish down there. Trish, see you later. I realised when I was about 20 that it's all the art school stuff was lovely, but I suddenly realised that I was given something at birth, by God or whatever. Incredible memory. I can remember everything back to the age of 3. Everything, almost every line. A good sense of vision and great eyesight. And I suddenly realised that if something distracts me or attracts my attention, I freeze, all my senses become inert, and it's all through this vision. And I'm no different to a hawk or a predator. You know, but my vision is an alpha. I'm not there maybe having to protect my territory, or maybe look at something to hunt and kill for food. I just want to, if possible, go up to that subject matter and say, hi, yeah, what are you doing? And have a chat with it. If I can't, but usually what happens, I'll take an interpretation of it, visual interpreter. It's like having a whiskey and a smile on my face. I love it. I've been doing it all my life. That's why I realised that I had a broad eye. I could never, ever, as a photographer, settle on one subject. It's just not enough. And that's why a lot of the photographers whose work I admired when I was growing up. I often wonder, when I think of the hundreds of thousands of miles I've travelled with the camera, the hundreds, maybe millions of images I've taken, I often wonder how many times my left eye and left eye through my brain has instructed my right forefinger and thumb to go click. It's quite. So for someone that does so much work over a long period, it's very hard to have a retrospective of what. No, I'm sorry, I've got a headache just looking back at some of the stuff I did in the 70s and that, and I'm not looking any further. Now, most of my stuff for this exhibition is under wraps, and most of it's in Kilkenny, where I work with Anthony Hobbs. But in all fairness, you asked me to do this last year, but through COVID we couldn't. But I managed to find a few bits and pieces that you might be interested in. It's really old school. A lot of the new stuff, digital, there's nothing wrong with it. Big print, huge print. You know. So I don't know where to start. I don't know what to talk about, really.
No, I'd say we keep the memory sheet till later. And probably, seeing as we have reasonable light at the moment, maybe we start looking at, well, some of the prints. What do you think?
Well, there's a couple of good examples here, because there's 3 prints down there on the beach racing.
If we trying to...
No, I'm doing it. But just explain. I was doing some beach racing in Coolin Strand in Sligo, and it's not up and down a beach like in Laytown. It's, when the tide goes out there, it's a circular track, which is lovely, about 1.5 miles. A beautiful mountain scenery. And I was using...
They're down the very end.
No, it's
Right. Oh, yeah.
doesn't matter. I was using one of these, rangefinder, 6x9, handheld. Right?
Is that Fuji one?
What?
Is that Fuji?
Yeah.
Future, yeah. Great cameras. I mean, handheld. And I developed the film,
Yeah.
never printed them, and it was only about 2003 I got a scanner, so I'm doing my own stuff, and I printed them, you know, and I couldn't believe the turn. That no one was doing it. So remember, it was all in its infancy. But the tonal range from these 3 pictures, I thought was rather beautiful.
So it's a film and
What?
scanned and developed digitally.
FB4,
Yeah.
developed, you know, but I was hand holding that, remember?
Yeah.
It was a sunny day, but I used to have a red filter and a polarizer. This is the start of all this.
Mike, if you hold it up and show it to us.
Yeah, go on.
We can around, I'm sure.
Do that. I just don't think you get that tonal range with a film camera. I mean, look at this. This is a winning trophy. Slightly, I always like warm tones. So probably a 4 and 6
No, no.
I think that give it
Great.
some.
Just one more.
All right.
Yeah, we're doing great.
Isn't that lovely, yeah?
Excellent. Yeah, beautiful.
And the great thing about the digital age, I could get rid of the starting poster with a tape that didn't look any good. But it's a lovely tonal range there.
It is.
What did
And
you shoot that
I'm
on?
proud I took those because they've stopped doing it now. So they did it for the first time first time in 26 years, and now they've stopped forever. So
What camera did you shoot that on?
what?
What camera did you shoot that
That
on?
was the 6x9 Fuji.
That's the Fuji.
Handheld.
Okay.
I don't mind anyone to feel away from it.
Yeah.
Mike, we went to pass those around to people.
What? If you want to.
We just passed them around.
Let's feel that, listen. And I use those 2 cameras and a medium, a smaller one. When I went to the Hindu Kush Mountains and the Afghan border, I used those. Fantastic pictures. Black and white. It's a rangefinder, isn't it? So, isn't it? And that's this one. To this day, if anyone can get one, we'll go back to the film. These are superb. They're 645 and the portraits are upright. But they're
Mike, can you speak up?
No,
Sorry.
I'm the batteries control.
Mike, can you speak up? If you wouldn't mind. Yeah, sure, sorry. I should have brought a microphone.
Yeah, these are, this is an autofocus 645, superb street photography. Unfortunately, the battery's gone, otherwise I would have. But you see it goes in and out quick, you know. But when you hold it that way, it takes a portrait. We're going to do a landscape on that. Yeah. Everyone thinks I photographed the painting in the National Gallery of the Goose Girl. You know that famous picture of the gallery? And I tell everyone, no, it's mine. I've got 6 geese in mine, and the National Gallery is 7. I did, this is Betty's style, which is very good. We were doing a fashion shoot in 1987 as a tribute to the Irish Impressionist painters. And this is my version of the Goose Girl. Well, in all fairness, Betty's style. I made the geese out of Europe. Yeah, but you try controlling a gallery.
Exactly. And the model.
That's Flick Taylor, and this is John Rocher Spring Summer Collection 1987. And I got the Pope on the day. But I'm so fussy that Pope on is annoying me because it wasn't quite round enough.
Yeah.
Right? But that was shot on film. No, that's not at all, no. Believe it or not, that particular bluebell didn't exist in 1971, it wasn't there. A friend of mine, Eric Vanderbilt, the same man from Aer Lingus, bought a house, Oakport House, and that was the back entrance to it, and because it was a forest, the foresters decided not to actually plant the coniferous trees up to the road. They planted some beech trees, the natural habitat inside the forest. We put a few bags of seeds and things down, and over the years we got this. It's now, through that picture, it's become a tourist attraction. I'm telling you, you'd find that, but they don't realise it's not as good as that anymore because the trees are bigger and the canopy of leaves is much bigger. It's gone.
It's changed.
But there's still 50 or 60 cars there every day, and I should get fibre. Send it to a program.
Can we pass that around? Can we pass that around?
Of course you can, yeah.
Yes, okay.
I don't do that. I don't do that.
No, you're just the competition's too much, just me.
And did you see that you didn't see the actual picture?
Sure, it's a tree.
It's very heavy.
They're heavy, so I think we might leave them.
This is interesting. The very first, I did a fashion show in the studio in about 2003. There were no digital cameras.
Can I see the camera there, guys?
But this was done on the 645. And it's the first time I ever saw a scan. I just love the team.
You can actually see the fence.
bit late 70s at this stage. I thought I really would love to have a camera made for me, right? And something I could revere. And the oldest camera makers in the world living were the Gandolfi brothers in Peckham in London. And I found out, and this is an original one, they're both dead now, but someone tried to take over the business, so they wouldn't be the original. But I'll never forget it, it was lovely. I found out, I was working at the time on a thing called the Risers for the Sense of Ireland, 1979, 78, that period. And Louis Gandolfi said, yeah, that's all right, yes, it's a 2-year waiting list. And he said, do you want your name on the list? And I said, of course I do. That's why I'm ringing up. And I want a 10 by 8 Gandolfi with a wooden tripod and a 5" by 4" reducing back, which I have in there as well. And he said, we tell you a few months before it's ready, do you still want it? So my name is on the list. And as they start pecking away at it, when I was probably about 10th on the list, do you want it? So I said, yeah, and I sent the deposit. And I had an exhibition at the time, 1980. I ordered it in 78 it was, not 76, 78. And I had an exhibition in the Poetry Centre in London. It's on a book called The Writers, you know. You know what the sad thing about that book is? 90% of the people in the book are now passed on, including Amy Higgins, by the way, who's in the book. We're staying in the house, aren't we? Springfield. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I went to this little warehouse in Peckham, up some stairs, and there was, if you can imagine this was in the middle of the room, covered in 4-tone white and 100-tone mahogany and kind of French polish dust. It was just like a rag, like a sheet. I didn't know what it was, but I went in, they had their labels on, and all you could smell was French polish. And he said, yeah, there you are. And he unveiled it with this cloth, and he was standing there like that. I nearly burst out crying, it was lovely. And he said, I want £688. That was for this, not the lens, tripod, and that was reduced. I thought, imagine, it was Volga handing out the money, looking at this marvellous sort of piece of sculpture there. And so I walked away with it, and that was that. This lens, by the way, it's an upper Lanthar lens, 300mm. This has a really good bokeh. It's fast, it's 4.5. But it's made out of radioactive glass. That lens, I was looking at them on eBay, I didn't realise, it worth between $4,000 and $6,000. Collector's item. So I've got my minder outside. But I'm going through a whole thing now called The Alchemist's Return, where I'm going to start using my Gandolfi again, doing portraits and things. And I've also got two 15" by 12" cameras, which I've got film made for that. And I'm going to go through a dark period. I'm having a studio. No one's done this in the world before. I'm having it like tubular bits so it's collapsible, all with either charcoal grey or black curtains, top and bottom, like inside. And I want the opening, so everything should be available right. So if I want to actually, check out Curtis, the man that photographed the Red Indians, you know, in his books. A lot of them are dark backgrounds, beautiful highlight detail, black and white. But I can't wait to get this done because it means that if flat lights, like in those, just flat, it would move back a bit, all available, right? But it means I can pull the curtain back a little bit, 6 or 8 feet behind, just to let a little bit of available light creep in. Or I can maybe have a tiny highlight on the shoulder by letting some top light. It's all done by curtains. And I thought charcoal grey is going to be better than black, because charcoal grey still has a tiny highlight. It won't just go to black. So that's my new little... Good, isn't it? The Alchemist's Return, that'd be good.
Just a question, that type of portrait, what sort of exposure time are you talking about?
Well, this one, well, if it's 200 ASA film, you'll crack it open, it's 4:5. Usually, the pictures I've taken, I haven't got any here because they're down in Kilkenny, but I might have one on the slideshow, we can get it going later, it's punks, you know. But, you know, about between that, no, well, it depends how, if you want F16, depending on how much you want in focus, about half a second, something like that. Very sharp. Oh, what's it, what did I tell you? I thought it was a 200 million picture, I think it's about 400 million picture. If you get my drift, you know, if you scan it, it's unbelievable. But it's just something that was made for me in my, I might put it in my coffee. Oh, sure, that's good. I thought just because I've been doing this for such a long time, it would be good to see some of the cameras from yesteryear and that. But you know what I'd really like to do now? Open some of the new stuff. There's a bit of photographic history here at the moment. And let me find, there's an image here called 12 Minutes of Time. And no one in the world had ever done anything, and since, so in photography, I was very privileged in Carrick-on-Shannon studio out there, and collaborating with Anthony Hobbs. It's 2,000 linear exposures over 12 minutes. And it happened by accident. And I'll tell you more. I'll just find the image first. There's lots of them here.
It's the one on the left.
Right?
Yeah, you're on the right one, yeah.
There it is. The finished print for the exhibition is going to be twice that size. So you can wall it. I'll tell you exactly how it was taken. Don't be scared. It won't bite. It's a reject, so it's not working. Now, Anthony I've known for years, and I happened to go to visit him in Kilkenny. It could have been to get the print of one of the things. And I happened just to have taken delivery of a Robert Ridley pinhole camera that takes 5x4 sheets. I think it's average up priority at 240. But Anthony said, Mike, I just got this scanning back sent from Steve Johnson from America. It's a scanning back, 5x4. And it was for the College of Art, 23 grand. So I said, I wonder if we'll fit it in. We just managed, because it wasn't too, we managed to fit it in. And we started playing around with it. And I decided I was going to, I was doing a shoot. These are all based on, they're very beautiful. So there's 3 little statues in the garden of Castle Residence, and with Ashley Air and Brian Murphy, very good. I hear them make it. Each one of these shots takes about 6 hours to prepare. I did the first one, that one, with the pinhole camera scanning back. And that's why it's called 12 Minutes of Time. Good, isn't it? And this was taken with my Gandolfi with the scanning back. This one, this was 8 minutes exposure. It's called my Autumn Tricolor. And for this one, I'm going to re-photograph it, or put it on the show, with sunlight coming through it. So you're looking at back to front. Right? I'm going to put a little bit of 22 karat gold there, but I want actually made out of silk chiffon. I want an autumn tricolor and have it dipped in tea to make the silk go a bit off-white. And then I use probably turmeric on one end, wash, and then some spinach dye. So I'll have this lovely little tricolor. So when you open the door, it'll just go, just to give it that bit of thing. So this is the kind of way I've gone now. It's very personal. And then this is very special. This is called The Haunting of Byzantium. Now, the finished print of this, I've already sold them actually. It was much bigger than this. It was something like maybe 6 foot by whatever the thing is. And this is to do with a series. There's the other one of that series, like Delphine. This is a photograph. I don't often do this. I've twinned an image. And it's called The Haunting of Byzantium. This Byzantium was the Greek-Turkish divine. And this is like, one line is still created, isn't it? A bit weird. There we are. But this is a project I'm working on called, it's called Pangaea, Raising the Dead from Montego Bay to Serpent's Rock. Now, Montego Bay is where the Big Bang, Pangaea, happened. And for some unknown reason, the whole coast of Sligo is covered in fossils that are 480 million. That's all 480 million.
Thank you.
Good, isn't it? You need to, right? You need to have a drink or two to take that on. But there's other stuff. There's some more of that. Where's that? Oh, I know where it is. Here, look. This is some of that stuff. Look. This is the Big Bang. Right? The Big Bang. And this is Journey into Space. All fossils, by the way. But I've interpreted them, you see. You can look at these. This one I love. Olympus. Yeah. This is called Looking for Excalibur. Because this looks like a knight's arm and a breastplate, and we're missing the sword. You know? These are only work proofs at the moment, so. And this is pendant and gold. I'm going to put maybe some gold dust on some of these and put silver. Well, I've done a lot of fashion photography, and it's important that just to keep it in, you know, just having that little reminder. It's just being a bit more something very old and just treating it like a bit of jewellery. This one's, the finished print of this is going to be 8 foot by 4 foot, and it's called Journey into the Golden Screen. And this one's also going to have 23-karat gold dust just hanging on. You can look at these and you can walk around and look at them again if you want. And all these, all the fossil ones, to give it the integrity I want, because they're all from the sea, I've given them all old-fashioned, now not noise, old-fashioned grain, to remind you of the seashore, you know, sand. You can see in there, there's just enough bite in that to give it that little bit of something.
My fault is showing.
Olympus.
35?
No, just the Micro Four Thirds.
The E1, is it?
What?
The E1.
No, it's the Olympus OMD. Forget the picture of it.
No. The accreditation is out now.
Yeah, I do. I'm a fanatical printer. Always have been. Black and white, especially in the old days, Celbridge journals. So I have a book over there that I was given by my late wife called The Photographic Chemical Formula for. It was from Agfa, 1938, and it was like getting a Mrs. Beaton's cookery book. I looked at, I started doing all this stuff, Lennox chemicals, and I wasn't quite happy with. So I wanted to become a Michelin star chef. So I started fine-tuning and discovering things by using ammonia and copper toning and fogging. I fog a lot of my pictures. I'll show you some of them later. But I look at them now, and I spent 30 years doing this. No one else in the world was doing it. I was doing it because it was an addiction, part of the filming, the alchemy thing, and I loved it. And the good thing is, I found some reject prints, like 40 years, 38 years later, and I've managed now on the scanner from the fix, so I've got a really good scanner. I can put the print on that's not quite the way I wanted it, so instead of having to do 50 prints now to get one right, with all the chemicals, I get the reject print now, and I can bring it to life, and no one knows really, because it's the same picture. I'm just adding my little bit of copper, a bit more fogging, and they're going to the exhibition as well, because they're really beautiful. Some of them. If we can get the projector going.
Right, should we you've got loads of them.
Yeah, we're looking at a few more anyway.
That we can hand around, and it's all.
Yeah, now, in the old days, back in the old days, when you had to get work, you had to have a portfolio. You didn't have a USB stick and send it online. You had to go around. So I made that box there, and we used to get stuff laminated. You probably know that. That's all right. But there's a few things in here that were like advertising campaigns. These can all be handed around, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But these are like some of the. These are the. Now this one, this is a good one. Talk about drama. There was no snow in the entire world that was negotiable at all. Because, you know, snow starts melting in March, right, and doesn't come again until November. And it was for a bizarre work company, because the advertisers we wanted snow. And we were prepared to fly from Ireland. Wilson Hartnell were the advertisers. we were going to go to Banff in Calgary or somewhere. We were going to go to Aspen, Colorado. We're going to Val d'Isere. In the end, we went to Zermatt because there was a light dusting of snow there, and they'd actually just built a new ski lift that went up another 8,000 feet or something. And we went up there. I was using a 6.7 Pentax camera and Ectochrome transparency. And we had to make, I'll show it to you in a minute, we had to make a little set, and the model, who wasn't a skier at all, she just looked athletic and dressed, it looked like she was having a race with this sledge with a bottle of Smirnoff, Hussar vodka. And I got one roll of film, halfway through a second roll, there's only 10 frames in it, and the little Dutch kid lost control on his skis and came right through the set. I screamed, I nearly caught an avalanche. Thank you, it was English, so I didn't understand what I said. But we went, and when we, Brian Swift, God rest his soul, really lovely art director, we were in the station in the airport, and he had to go to the lab to get the film done to see if we got the job on it. We shot other things like just still lifes and pictures of the Matterhorn and all that. But I saw him walking towards me with a bottle of brandy in his hand, knocking it back. And he went, "We got the picture." And this is the picture. And when it was a 48-sheet poster, I couldn't believe it. I'm driving, this was winter here. We're driving along the canal. And there's snow everywhere. And I'm looking at this picture, and it's like she's coming down towards us on the skis, look. See what this is all set up. I had a bit of cotton tied on there. Someone was with a shovel full of snow, and I said, "But 1, 2, 3, and that." And she had to do that. But look, one roll, and suddenly the little kid came right through that. But you imagine coming down the canal in Dublin, and you've got this big 48 sheet, but not a little thing. That's a magazine. This was in the thing. I thought, it looked like you were in the Alps. Pass that round. That's done transparency. It's really very dodgy. You have to clip tests and all that. We couldn't even get the clip test because there wasn't enough exposures to get through half the roll. These are some others. You might have seen these over the years that were up. Yeah. Right? And this one here, for Pierre d'Or, actually, this was done in March, middle of winter, freezing cold, and they were prepared, the client was prepared to go to the south of France to find a gîte or something where we could get a Provençal feeling. But I found Gareth Brown's house at the back, the courtyard there was very French. And so by adding a few little shutters to the windows and getting a bit of early spring foliage to call shadows, we dressed up, we made it look only the French adore Pierre d'Or. And that won the advertising award. And I saved them £17,000 by not going there, and I never had another job from it. And it won the advertising award there. Right? Good, doesn't it? And this man here, he was teaching French in Trinity. He thought he was in the south of France. So I gave him to see the proof. They look good, you know. No one knows what half is anymore.
It looks like only the drink companies have money to spend.
Well, I'll show you these now. There's more there of the advertising. I won't hand these round, but they're very beautiful.
Can we pass one of those around?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah. These were done for Smirnoff vodka, which meant the trip. This was a trip to Miami. I can't really have these because they're not in the wraps. Listen, these are also this kind of stuff. This is even better. You go out there to do these shoots. You have a big Winnebago. You've got all your eyes bare there, superb food, and you know. Everyone else is doing the same thing. Drink, right? Oh, well, yeah. No, that's a fashion show. What is that one there? Is that
Fashion shoes as well.
What?
Fashion shoes as well.
Which one's that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, but they're all stories. What's that one then? Yeah, that's one story. Yeah, the Betty style there. That's how I live. This was like a Betty style and that's nice. Best model we ever had, Ali Dunn. Yeah. She's the first model in the world ever. She was doing stuff with George Galliano, and she decided when she was coming down the ramp, it's in Paris, she took her top off and showed her tits. And they kept saying Ali, Ali. It's a new way of saying Ali because she's like a small 6 foot tall dog. This is all 35mm film. That's the colour very much, isn't it? Nice girl. That's what I used to do. And this is what I used to do when I was a photographer. It's editorial, so I still didn't get paid. This is a beautiful shape. I did this in the National Gallery. Yeah. Very nice. Sharon Bateman designed it. One light. By the way, I only ever use one light. And there's always too much light, and I take it away. And if you take light away from everything, it makes it three-dimensional. She's 17 now. Right? I'll tell you what's lovely. The last shot here was my favourite. She was almost going to miss the plane and go back to London. Her taxi was there ready to take her here. We were sitting in the next picture. See that? That's one light, one pump, just old-fashioned tungsten light. Just making it, and a tiny bit of film. I use aeroball, not to. It's to clean up, not to. You must never use aeroball and reflectors to light something. Just hold it back until you just see it fresh. Then you eat them, according to and that's what we do with all these. But she's actually, this girl, there was a taxi waiting to take her to the airport. And I said, please, just this one last shot. She came down once, did this second time, and at the bottom of the stairs, the dress was taken off, and she got into her clothes and up to the airport. Isn't that a lovely shot? And that was, I wasn't using really fast film, it was still only 400 ASA transparency, future film.
Strong lights
yeah, if you can see the lighting is, I like that dominance of the contrast.
Yeah.
Now this is very. This was sponsored by some French guy. It's so easy to do this shoot. And he done it. Yeah. But where's the rest of my Molly Malone stuff? Now this is one of my favourite shoots ever. It was done by Betty, my own brother, where she used collective Dublin designers, where everything they designed that year was black, and she did the story of Molly Malone. By the way, all this stuff you're looking at now is the most modern one of those have been 1992, all the others are the 80s. Look at these two different guys, they're making models, look at them. Well, you can tell my passion is like this, it's not never shouts at you. That's all it comes with it. Do you know what I mean? That's Molly Malone, that's the whole thing. Then she had to have that dog, she had to have a bunch of food. She started. No memory, sir. Cost a fortune, all this. Film, prints. If I want to buy a roll of 120 colour film now, it's twice as expensive as a litre of diesel. That's it. That's really expensive, yeah. So that's all part of that. What's that part of that? Yeah, that's the story from start to finish. It's Molly Malone on Dublin designer. By the way, you know, when you have the 400 minute picture. These books I get as well.
I think they have it on my side.
Which I did on the beach. So you can have it handy around, and it's very pretty stuff. That was all shot on film, and I shot most of that on the beach with a red filter, orange filter, red filter, or red filter, and a polarizer filter. Now I'm going to put some of this there. Now, I was in the Mansion House. Noel Carroll. You're the first people ever to see this picture. And it's of De Valera and Costello. They never spoke to each other for 40 years. And Lord Costello was leaning on De Valera. They were just given freedom of the city, and I happened to be there. Someone from England in there, in the green room. I don't know how many samples that. This is just some shots from old Dublin. Yeah. So,
you know,
they're going to go in the exhibition one.
You tell me each time when to move on. And if you move down the hall so everyone can hear you, so it's better. So you move down there and look up at the screen, right? Good. Yeah, that's good.
These pictures of old Dublin, I tried to give Dublin integrity. I didn't want to make it look. I don't like all that stuff. And there's some quite nice pictures there.
Keep going.
Just keep going. Yeah. Look at this. He's the man who used to take the pictures on the bridge. Remember? This to me is iconic. I just think if you look at the diagonal there, it's a beautiful picture. Can you make the screen go darker? It's a bit light. Well, you can do it with your screen, can't you? That was 1973, though. 73.
Only one of them.
35mm black and white, can't beat it. Scanned. Look at that, Misery Hill. It's great. Good shot. Nice portrait of Mount Joy, isn't it? I think I can pick my photograph probably in there now. Isn't that a great shot? Look at it. I've never seen them like this before. You know this, isn't it? That's the judges. Isn't that good? That's good. He was all around Crown Alley.
That's great photo. Beautiful.
The turf depot, look at this. That's the only time Trinity has had the snow. It was Good Friday. Good Friday, in the snow, and I went back to another old floor and it melted. Isn't this great? I love this. This is the turf depot. On Russell Street, look. Make it a bit darker. Can you get rid of all the nonsense? Just the picture only. No, it is. Anyway, that's that lot done, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Now, can you go on to the fashion hand tone? The next lot, they're all hand toned, black and white pictures, all with my alchemy. And these would have all been done from about 1984 to 1990, that period. But there's some lovely ones here.
Mike, what folder is that?
What?
What's the folder called?
Hand toned. Does it say hand toned? Something or other? Original hand tone.
Just have a look here. Exhibition final selection. Images of Verdon and
I
Jason.
really do. Because it reminds me of what I used to do when I had a good kitchen. Yeah, you know, with all the recipes. Iron toning, foggy, a lot of fogging, a lot of...
Is that Crow Street?
Crown Alley.
Crown Alley.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
What's that now?
It's taking its time.
That's all right. Well, they're tips, not cake mixes.
Here we go, we're done.
Very beautiful.
Yeah. This is actually a much later one. This is a hand-toned, grainy kind of fog print of John Rocha when he had a show in Paris. She's a Russian model called Olega. There might be another show with a bit more colour. Alison Doody now from Michael Martel. They're lovely. They're black and white prints, just warm tone. That's the other one. That's a bit better, that one, than the last one. Nice though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Look at Alison Doody there.
Wow.
She's never ever, all the Bond moves, she never looked as good as she did in these pictures. No. And she really was the sweet. Look at that.
Yeah.
One light. Just go for it. Bit of wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, look.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Lovely colour, lovely light.
There's only one light. Now some of these are really tough. I was almost crying because I'd forgotten how lovely these girls used to look. I'd never photographed a girl that I fancied.
No.
No, I never did, because it's wrong. I only photographed them because they suited the camera.
Yes.
That's another one of Alison's. Some of these go in the exhibit. Look at that. Iron tone,
Yeah.
fogged with ammonia.
Wow.
Brian Murphy, the hero again, it's very good.
Mm-hmm.
These are some of my favourites coming up now. I think, look at that. It was all about Kuwaiti pearl divers, and this girl's got her leg trapped in a big clam. But very simple.
How long does it take you to set up that?
That's one light, that particular shot, just knowing where I was. This one's a bit more plate glass, and she's really going mad because that's her friend that's just died. See, that's all hand toned. Any colour there is not done with a brush, it's all done with liquid. And I called that shoot, isn't it? Look at her, she's lovely. This girl called Audrey, her dad didn't want to model. And I thought she had that wonderful Medici look, she looked Italian.
Yeah.
But look, there she is again,
Yeah, it's lovely.
John Russian stuff. But these weren't jobs, it's just me doing it, you know.
Particularly?
All black and white pictures, yeah. But then I love this. This is copper tone, fogged and distressed. And this is John Rocha. Mm. Hugh Thomas, my old assistant. This is John Rocha's very first collection. Hold it there for a minute, because he had no clothes to send to London. They set a set of my sepia tone prints that Helen McAlinden took to the London Designs Collection, and he got accepted on the strength of those pictures. And he never looked back. They had no samples.
Yeah.
And I went to the show and they said he had the best show in London that year, you know, so
Yeah.
that's lovely, isn't it? That's Betty again, that's a shoot we did in just one of those country shoots. But see, yet again, desaturated colour. That was shot on film. All these are shot on film, by the way. This year again, John Rocha. That is me at my very best. That's Catherine Hamlet, the first shot, and I've got the original small print of that, iron tone and fog, and this is just scanned from that, but it's... Why is that not in focus?
It'll be okay in a sec, I think.
This is called The Metamorphosis of Susan Barry. She looks like Lady Lowbury. Why is it not in focus?
Yeah, I don't know mine.
Maybe it's still loading, is it?
It's loading.
Is it open?
No, it shouldn't.
No, it should be enough by now.
No.
Beautiful, look, see, just 16 years old, that girl. But it's Brian doing the hair and George Bunn and all that stuff. It's really good. Now, this to me is me at my very, very best. This is John Rocher, 1987. This is where I was, the original print, it's quite small, it was done on a 10x8 camera, not that one, another one. It's a contact print, but it's iron tone, fogged, and I've even bought with ammonia. If you look at her face, it's actually black and white. I brought it back to black and white. Isn't that lovely? And the thing is, on this section, when I have an exhibition on this, they've all got to be different sizes and different frames to make it work for me. That's Mario there, John Russell. Is she lovely there, look? Is that out of focus as well? I'm not going mad.
I think that's okay, that's it.
That's, yet again, it's like, I've got two very, very soft lights, and the secret is you have, I make my own light box because it's soft, and then I have another layer in front. See, the thing about light, if you have it soft, you have to have another layer in front of that to make it softer. You can't just put 3 layers of soft, that just makes it darker. You just keep breaking. I had a, if you can imagine the wall here, I had a, say, photographing someone there, but the light would start there, and it's all made of air coming down there and bouncing, so by the time it came out, it was very soft. Like fresh air. That's another one. That was called Monet by Dylon. And that was the Dylon. Claire Garvey made the clothes. But they make it's not sharp, or is it?
Yeah,
I think it's
Let me go back to the.
That's it there now, Charlie, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think, see, it's not sharp on this one either. Oh, at least that one is, they are. But the previous one, the one with the triptych or everything.
Go to the trip.
That's good. That's not. Well, that's better now.
That's better.
That's definitely better now.
Should have gone to Spectator. David, you should have gone to Spectator. Optica, maybe.
That's fine. That's sharp.
And David, I think you have a full screen option on the top of it.
But
I
I've
don't
always,
think- oh, I do.
anytime
Sorry.
I've done fashion,
Sorry, you're dead right.
I keep it very soft and very
Thanks.
clean because I'm paying homage to feminine beauty, not, I don't want it in rag order to get my joke. Just another version. Now this is Onega, I think, this is copper tone, black and white picture, John Rocher, Paris, 1994, that one. Silver gelatin. Isn't it lovely? She's lovely.
But that doesn't look black and white. That's colour.
No, it's a black and white image that I've hand tones and fogged.
Oh,
My own
okay.
residence.
Okay.
You definitely should have done special.
You're dead right. Yeah.
You do herring cast as well.
Okay.
This was a lovely brochure I did for these. They're the biggest knitwear company in the world now, doing hammers and that. They're friends. I live in Montreal. Isn't that a nice picture?
That's the end of that.
Oh, okay. Well, now, if you go to, is there a folder there that says, are we bored?
Go on now. You know,
What else did it say? I took more light up there. I painted my own canvas backdrops for this series. Geez, it was good one. Can you make it bigger? I want to see what it's going to be like.
How did you make those things?
No, and there should be more colour in this. This is the Ghosts, the Women of 1916, all available, right? See, your screen, if anything's too light.
Yeah.
yeah. It's darker on this.
Yeah.
So can we darken on that?
Not easy, David.
Not easy.
You
No.
can do it, but it's not ideal.
All available light, I do my own. I built, choreographed that, did it all myself. There's a girl that made those dummies, you know. And then the next one should be the Inquisition. There's the Inquisition. It's a shame there's too light.
Yeah.
You saw that? Yeah.
And how did you get that shot?
Well, it's not a job.
No. How did you know, were they rocks or, you know, to face the twinned image? The one before that.
Oh, the uncounted. Well, this
No,
one.
no, this
Oh,
one.
there.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
Oh, how do I do it?
Are they like fossils?
They're fossils, yeah. They're
And they
400
just form
No,
a
if
face.
you divide that picture in
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
I don't ever do this, but I actually decided to have a mirrored image because it worked.
Yeah. And it gives the look of a little face there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. See the face in there.
It's just
But it's
brilliant.
not, yeah, but they're fossils. They're 400 million years old.
I love it.
So they look good on the screen, don't they? We don't have to hand it around now. And you can turn the lights up.
Sit back.
That's the end of that.
Is there a folder on there that says suggested exhibition pictures?
Exhibition final selection.
No. No. I might have another one that's got a lot more fashion and stuff on it.
Exhibitions, rough exhibition samples.
Yeah, that could be cool. Because, can you have them as pictures on there? These are JPEGs, they'll come up much quicker.
Oh, okay. Good, okay. Oh, well.
What? Which one?
Yeah, it's all
Is it right?
Open with, get out of it. With. No.
You're not very good at this, right?
No, I'm not. Thanks very much, lads. Thanks very much.
So much for delicate. This is.
Bloody
I'd like you to get Karakir up. You see, this is starting.
Just, David, just click on more apps.
Okay, but. Oh, sorry, what if I get it on? No.
And scroll down.
Scroll down.
Scroll down.
There, yeah, no.
That's
If it's
it.
the first images on this, this is what decided. I couldn't go back to London. I went to Karakir where I live, in Saigo, it's like the divine spirit of rain. And that's it. Now, hang on. That's really out of focus.
Just give me a minute.
Why don't you, with these glasses, what, is that in focus or not?
That's it, folks.
Huh?
Great.
That means you're not allowed in, there's traffic to cross.
Here we are.
Yeah. Are they in focus? That's in focus now, isn't
It
it?
is, yeah, but there is something wrong.
Keep going.
Yeah, I'll check it.
The oldest, second oldest burial site in Europe. And much older, 1,500 years older than Newgrange. And there's no bureaucratic treatment to wade through, we just go up there and have a good time. They celebrate midsummer, the solstice.
Surely there must be a better way of doing this.
Is it a video or a photograph?
Well, they should come up here because they're JPEGs, they're much smaller than the others.
I don't know why they're not coming up, to be truthful.
No, just go down 3 or 4 images, just hold it by open my nose.
No.
I mean, really, I'm sorry to tell you, this isn't good.
This is bad, isn't it?
I come all the way here, I can't even get an ice cream.
That's not good for work.
It's like it's on video. Yeah. I think it's video.
That's it.
There's some, honestly, really nice pictures on this also. It's 180 pictures on this.
Just have to tell us a little more.
Hmm?
Just have to tell us a little